try to help educate our members. Our primary objective is to first find my glasses so that I can see my notes. Something. Maybe I'll have to take Yeah, as most of you know, our primary objective of the Business and Professional Caucus is to not only promote small business and the professions.
It's on, but it's not up.
Get closer.
Yeah, it's not only to promote the small business and professions, but it's our opportunity to help you build a successful business and work to have a better world. As our economy has developed and grown over the years, especially during our lifetimes, we've seen a propensity for a continuing concentration of wealth to a very few. And we've also seen a diminished middle class with more and more people living in extreme poverty. Just look around on the streets and you see the result of what is happening with the big corporations. And keep in mind that these big corporations are influencing our politicians who are elected into office when money is the thing that causes them to introduce a legislation that we want to help benefit people, but under these today's conditions with Citizens United and the growth of world economies, we find that these conglomerates are becoming just so great and huge that they're able to, because of the stock conditions, they have excessive capital with the growth of stock, and they end up going into mergers and acquisitions of other companies. But more importantly, when a small business begins to do well, and these big companies move into an area because they see there's a lot of activity, retail or professional activity in that community, they will go in and set up shop, and then after they become established, they start lowering prices because they can. And as they lower prices, they cause a small business owner possibly to go bankrupt because they can't meet the competition in terms of pricing. And this is very dangerous because, remember, small businesses are the source of most jobs in our country. Small businesses create the innovation and the growth in our economy and provide us with a basic freedom for opportunity for all. And this is part of who we are as a nation of immigrants that maybe couldn't get a job because they couldn't fit in. But what they could do is go and be vendors on the streets, which we often see. Or they may set up a small business in some way of what they did in their homeland. And if they are not able to do that, what does that leave us with? That leaves us with something like slavery for corporations that can dictate whatever they want to do. So in that regard, we have been thinking about what the Business and Professional Caucus can do. And as many of you know, over the many years that I've served as chair, one of our main purposes has been to educate our members. Because our membership, working together, can provide the support as a caucus that you direct us and our officers to work with our legislators to meet your needs. And your feedback to me, you can always get my number on the website, to me or any of our officers to tell us what kind of problems you face so that we can work together to tell our legislative officers that these are the things that we need to fix and change. And we will see these many electeds want to come here and speak before this caucus, and you'll have an opportunity. There's a microphone set up here to ask, but we have a timer. She's going to set over here. Chris, is it?
Kathleen.
who's going to help us. And if she keep an eye out inside. And I want to tell you that we're videotaping this because we always like to videotape our panels because we want to get more mileage out of it to reach more small business owners. And that's an important part of our caucus because we're all about educating. And because it's the ignorance that we face in our country today that prevents the very solution to the many issues that we face. And we as professionals and we as small business owners need to fight for our survival in these difficult times. And what we're calling this panel today is the crucial need for antitrust enforcement in the 21st century. Crucial need. Think about it. Think about the companies that are growing so large. They can move in. I have a problem in my area in Los Angeles because when the mergers took place with the internet companies, they come in and there's no competition. And without competition, every month, they go up $2, $5 or more. And it gets to a point where you look at your bills and say, well, my service didn't change, but what do? You have no alternative. There's no small business that fills those needs for us as consumers. And we need to protect small business. This is where we provide the jobs, the growth. So I want to run through some of the panels we've done in the past, just to give you an idea. We started off with small business. We did a panel on the underfunded judicial, Democrats for business and the environment, the impact of transportation on business, profitability and the state economy, the influence of money on our electoral system, public banking as an alternative, and as you might know, I also chair the Public Banking Initiative of California, and just this week, AB 857 passed the Assembly. This is big news for us. For 20 years, I've been a small business commissioner for the county, fighting for small business. It's what I really believe in. It's part of our lifestyle. It's what we need to protect, and I hope that all of you share that passion. A few other panels that we've had have been, we did one about, let's see, did I mention that? We did the, excuse me. We had one on truth in politics. Can you imagine? And the last one we had last November was the impact of robotics and artificial intelligence on our economy. So we're moving forward, and we've got a great panel today. But before we introduce our panel, I'd like to first introduce our officers. First, I'd like to introduce Brigette Hunley. Brigette has served for a very long time. She's our Vice President North. She's got a great background, and she's also been the chair of the Computer and Internet Caucus for the CDP. And Mark Henderson is our Vice President, and he'll be coming in shortly. He's also an officer of the Afro-American Caucus. And when he comes in, I'll briefly introduce him, but he has also been a mayor of Glendora and a city council member, and he's a professor at the university, so he believes in education, and we're glad to have him as well as Brigette. And also, speaking of education, Cecile Bendavid, our treasurer. Cecile has an incredible background. She has been an officer with the union. She's a professor of engineering and computer services at the California State University. And she, as our treasurer, has been maintaining our roster, which has been very, very difficult lately. She also serves on the County of Los Angeles Democratic Party and on the legislative committee, and I'm proud to say we serve together on that committee in the county. And she's with the California Association of at CSU Northridge, in charge of political action and legislative chair for her membership, which is supporting teachers. So Now, having said that, I would like to first say that our last meeting, our secretary is no longer with us, and we're going to be looking for a new secretary. If any of you have ideas that you might like to be serving in that position, later in the meeting we're going to talk about that. In the meantime, our officers who have been here, the 4 officers, we will continue to serve because we weren't challenged, and by acclamation we'll ask you for your vote of confidence so we can continue on with our work. Moving forward, since Cecile is here, I would like to ask Cecile to give the treasurer's report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess Ray didn't know, for 25 years I owned a computer company. I grew up in the computer business. 1981, we started teaching people how to use computers. Some of you might remember 1981, the CPM operating system. We moved into Windows, IBM came in, and then later Windows, and we started manufacturing computer hardware. So my main job was to computerize production companies and law firms. So we did that for about 25 years. And then during that time, I started teaching part-time at Cal State Northridge. So small business is where my heart is, and that's how we paid the rent for 25 years. So I know your issues, and that's why this caucus is so important to me. All right, now our dues are $25. What you need to know from the dues, $5 goes to the party. So whenever you pay dues, you are supporting the party. This year, at the beginning of the year, we had $1,564.15 in the bank. We had memberships, $2,225 we paid out. They charge us for the room. They charge us for the microphones. All the microphones we have to pay. So it cost us $1,487 for our last meeting. We do not know how much it will be yet for this meeting, but our balance is $2,302.15. So that's my treasurer's report. I'm going to submit that now. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecile. So if you're not a member, please help us and join the caucus. You know, we really do need your support. And as Kevin De Leon said, we should be the largest caucus in the CDP, and he expects us to grow as the economy needs our help. So with your support and joining our caucus and asking your business associates and professional people to also support the caucus, we can do better things and work to help small business grow a little bit better. Also, we have one member I'd just like to mention is Clint Wernick here, please. Clint, are you here? Clint is a lifetime member. He was the first that we just passed a new category for our membership, $500, and he's a lifetime member. He's the first. So we're very pleased that if he were here, we'd give him a big round of applause. Our other type of membership is for democratic clubs or associations where you pay $100 and you can have 5 appointees. So having said that, what we're going to do now is we're going to, I've got the cards of some people who have given me their cards, and we're going to take, pardon me? Okay, did I get your card? Whatever cards I have. Yes, Senator. Oh, you're President. I'm a perfectionist. You know, I'm always working, and I worked at the White House as a consultant. I worked with a congressman for many years, and you don't make mistakes. But you know, when I'm trying to organize and make sure we have a good group and we are having a good panel, my mind is flipping on me. So excuse me for that, Amy, because you know, we want to respect our candidates who are working so hard to tell the world what we need to know about this situation where our country is at great risk. And working together, I think all the candidates are going to come up with the best person who can defeat Trump and come back to a sane world again. And so I'm very happy to have you here, and I ask you to go up to 2 minutes if you will.
One of my mentors, and his ads when he started running was he would really talk just fast like this because he said that his opponent had twice as much money as him, and so he had to talk fast in every ad. So I actually was in the private sector for a number of years and represented a number of businesses, including a lot of small businesses, and it is near and dear to my heart. And I am right now in the Senate the ranking member of the Antitrust Subcommittee. Yeah, your man, this is your thing. And I am leading the bill to change the way the antitrust laws work because they just are not relevant to a lot of the problems we're having. Also, the Supreme Court has been so conservative. When you look at small businesses, startups trying to get in the market, they've been so conservative how they've interpreted it. And in fact, the 2 new members, although one time Roberts made a good decision on this, Kavanaugh did, but the 2 new members have a record that is even more conservative. So if you look at getting small businesses into the market, one of the things we should be doing in Washington is making sure it's an even playing field, right? So you can get in the market. That's my first point. My second point is immigration reform. Because we are never going to have enough employees, at least in states like mine, for our small businesses, and especially in rural. If you can't hire enough employees because they're going into the cities, then you have an even bigger problem. And you have the same thing in urban, where people tend to gravitate towards some of the big businesses. So it is a really strong argument for 1, workforce training, but 2, immigration reform. And I would really like the small businesses to have a bigger seat at the table when we work on immigration reform when I'm president, because I think that will make a big difference as well. And then the final thing I would mention is just one way to deal with income inequality, and what we're seeing is to give people opportunities. Make sure they have access to capital, make sure that they have the ability to get a place to run their business, which means some of these spaces that we're getting where we can combine businesses, small businesses. I know in Minnesota we have like an incredible place where a lot of our small businesses are located, and then we have an international place that we have so many businesses. So as I look at how we're going to improve the lot for people of color, a lot of it has to do with that economic opportunity. And where do they usually start? They start with small businesses, and they run their businesses. So that is, again, what I said today. Immigrants don't diminish America, they are America. And a lot of what that is about is small businesses. And the last thing I would add is that I just love being out here. It's great. I'm taking a red eye home. So I am just going to go. I lost my voice in Reno, Nevada in a bar, but it was a small business. So I'm just going to keep going until I have no voice at all. Thank you, California. Keep up the good work.
Now that I know Senator Klobuchar is on the most important committee in the U.S. Senate, I think we're going to keep her here. We won't let her take her.
No, it is.
Help us find solutions.
Okay,
and
can I
work to
just,
help you.
one more thing, I'll pretend that's a question. One more thing is that we need to get more resources in the FTC and the Justice Department. Because, and one way we do that is by charging fees on the mega mergers. It's a drop in the bucket for them. And even the Republicans are probably going to do this with me in the end, but it puts more resources because they are not as sophisticated as the people that are coming before them on deals. Trump says he wants to take on these antitrust, but you know what he does. He does political stuff, right? And he takes on this company that, instead of really taking it on in a systematic way, because if we want to do something on farmer prices, one of the answers is antitrust. If we want to do something on making sure that small businesses get in, antitrust. Rail rates, antitrust. Some of the tech issues, antitrust. So anyway, it's a boring word, but it means a lot. So just remember that. All right? knows about my bill.
Senator, thank you again for stopping by. It's a real deep honor to have one of our federal leaders who can make a difference and fix this problem for us. So after this panel, we hope that we can send her the video and maybe she'll see some of the things that we think about what should be, what we can do to solve these problems. And now I want to go and we're going to move forward and we're going to begin our panel. And just briefly, the antitrust is not new. At the turn of the century, you remember the muckrakers and Ida Tarbell and the Standard Oil breakup and all these things that were happening? How is it that during the 1800s, the Sherman Antitrust Act was passed, and then later other antitrust measures were passed in our country, and now these companies have been allowed to go on without enforcement of the tools that were given to them to protect small business and protect our consumers in our country. It's a sad situation that this has developed the way it has, and I can just tell you that we've got an incredible panel, and I just want to go through and just briefly tell you a little bit about the backgrounds of some of the panel members. First, to my right is Eric Fastiff. He's an attorney, a partner with Leaf, Kelbrazer, Eman and Bernstein. He's been the chair of the Antitrust and Intellectual Property Practice Group, and he's practiced commercial litigation for 17 years, and he's the chair and board of his trustees of his children's day school. So can you imagine, with all the great things he's been doing in the world? He's a graduate of Cornell Law School, London School of Economics, and he has a great deal of experience dealing with antitrust measures, with especially for plaintiffs, people that have been hurt, and he's here with us today. So please, let's welcome Eric Fastiff. No, we're getting one right now. Who's that one? Well, after this section.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate it. You should understand that my practice as a lawyer, I represent consumers and small businesses mostly as plaintiffs in antitrust cases, mostly in class actions. So we are there on behalf of the victims of price fixing, monopolization, and other types of illegal price conduct. The antitrust laws of the United States today are under attack. What the short-sighted view of economic policy that currently governs our antitrust system is harming consumers and small businesses now, and it will for the foreseeable future. It's the result of the acts of the Chamber of Commerce and the Federalist Society and a group of economists who have convinced federal judges and some state judges about ways to interpret and project antitrust and economics in general. These are the wrong types of views. They are not pro-competitor, they are not pro-small business, but they are in favor of large businesses and what are perceived as efficiencies, but in the long term, they result in higher prices, less choices, low wages, and less innovation. In addition, the prevalence of arbitration agreements are denying consumers and small businesses the right to access to the courtrooms, and the attacks on class actions are preventing victims from vindicating their rights. So let me discuss three topics. First, the history of the antitrust laws. Second, why we need vigorous antitrust enforcement today. And finally, I'll give you a few thoughts on the effects of the lack of antitrust enforcement. So first, the history of antitrust law. The Sherman Act is the federal antitrust law, and it was passed in 1890 in response to a growing concentration of businesses in important economic areas: railroads, mining, and oil and gas. By the late 19th century, businesses had begun to form combinations known as trusts, which claimed a larger and larger share of the market, large enough to dictate prices. Members of both political parties were concerned with the growth of the power of trusts and monopolies, which were seen as threats to democracy and to the free market. The law passed the Senate by a vote of 52-1, showing its bipartisan importance. And the act authorizes the U.S. Department of Justice to bring suits to prohibit conduct that violates the Sherman Act's ban against trusts and cartels. It authorizes injured parties to bring suits to recover treble damages. And in short, it attacks trusts, which are monopolies, and anti-competitive conduct, which are conspiracies to fix prices. The Sherman Act has been a vibrant part of our legal system, or at least it was for a long time, and it was responsible for the breakup of Standard Oil, of AT&T, the Northern Railway Trust, and it provided competition in the growth of our economy in the 20th century. In 1914, Congress passed the Federal Trade Commission Act, along with the Clayton Act, which is an enforcement mechanism for the Sherman Act. And the Federal Trade Commission Act established the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and its purpose is literally, by statute, to protect consumers, not just competition. And it protects consumers against methods of deceptive advertising and illegal mergers and acquisitions. And the FTC itself can regulate mergers and acquisitions. And I think it's important to note, in 1907, the California legislature enacted our antitrust law, the Cartwright Act, which is very similar to the Sherman Act, although it does not have a mechanism to attack monopolies. So second, why do we need vigorous antitrust enforcement today and in the future? The largest U.S. firms are accounting for a growing share of economic activity. The reasons are many to be concerned about this: the lack of competition, higher prices, less innovation, and the ability to prevent smaller businesses from entering the market and competing. As a result, there are three needs for more vigorous antitrust enforcement. First, mergers. Antitrust enforcement by the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission has not been aggressive enough in challenging mergers. Competition is better protected and promoted if the Department of Justice and the FTC are more willing to challenge mergers. Second, dominant firm control. The agencies need to challenge exclusionary conduct by large, dominant companies. This includes refusals to advertise or to sell a competitor's product, controlling downstream resale prices, or even when one company requires a consumer to buy two products together instead of just buying one. Finally, labor markets. Companies that enter into agreements not to hire each other's employees, called no-poach agreements, by their very nature mean they're keeping their employees' wages low, denying them the opportunity to change jobs, and together this is increasing inequality in income distribution across the United States. And no surprise, most of these no-poach agreements happen in lower wage jobs, such as fast food franchise restaurants. So let me give you a few thoughts on the lack of antitrust enforcement. First, the fundamental problem today is the combination of technology and decreased regulation that has caused increases in dominant companies and at the expense of smaller businesses. While some mergers are beneficial and allow a newly formed company to grow and to compete and innovate, the government and the courts need to be skeptical when a dominant company seeks to merge or acquire another large company in a similar market. For example, CVS, a pharmacy, merged with Aetna, a health insurance company, to create a national power in healthcare that is not going to serve anyone except themselves. Or AT&T, a telecommunications provider, merged with Time Warner, which owns and makes movies and TV shows. That consolidation of two large companies in their own industries combining to form a behemoth in a combined industry does no one any good, stifles competition, prevents smaller businesses from competing, and certainly raises prices for consumers. There is nothing stopping the government from breaking up companies that have grown so big that their business actions harm competitions, such as excluding rivals. So there's plenty for the antitrust regulators to do, and they should be funded and encouraged to act. So finally, two other points. Our ability to enforce the antitrust laws and consumer laws and privacy laws and employment is under attack by lack of regulation, lack of initiative, by the forced arbitration attacks on class actions, and the Democrats are trying to remedy this. They introduced in Congress the FAIR Act, the Forced Arbitration and Justice Repeal Act. The lack of ability for a consumer or small business to bring a lawsuit in court is denying access to justice. And this is an attack on our freedom. It is something all Americans must stand up for and fight for your access to justice, your access to court, to prevent forced arbitration, to prevent attacks on class actions, and to demand that our government enforce the antitrust laws. Be vigorous, be aggressive, and fight the mergers and fight the large corporations that are denying consumers and small businesses their right to compete and for fair prices. Thank you.
Wow, what a great talk, Eric. Thank you so much for that. You are incredible in your knowledge, and we deeply appreciate it. How did you like that? One thing I failed to ask, by show of hands, how many are small business owners? How many are professionals? How many are unemployed? Okay, we're going to take a, let's see, I wanted to ask well, we've got a special guest, and we're going to interrupt our panel for a minute because this is a person that you've read about for years in the newspapers, a person whose company stands for progressive values and has been an inspiration for many small business owners. He founded one of the most successful companies in our country, and he's not a company that looks to take over the world. He is taking over our taste buds. He's here with us now, and I want to introduce Mr. Ben Cohen, the founder of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, who's going to talk to you about his inspiration.
I'm here because I've been going around with Bernie Sanders. I'm one of the you know, before Bernie, I used to be the most famous guy from Vermont. So, you know, I'm proud and very joyful that he's now taken over that mantle, because ice cream is good, but a president of the United States who truly believes in justice in all its flavors, that's euphoric. You know, I want to talk a little about some of Bernie's policies as they affect small business. As you know, he's been the major proponent of healthcare for all, Medicare for all. And, you know, the way I see it is that small business is at a disadvantage to big business because big business can afford to pay for healthcare insurance for its employees, but it's much harder for smaller businesses to do that same thing. You know, Bernie's a guy who wants to break up big Wall Street banks, and he's also looking to break up and institute those same antitrust laws that we heard about in terms of corporate agribusiness. I wanted to talk just a little bit about Ben & Jerry's experience with antitrust laws. You know, in the early days, there was Haagen-Dazs, who came into the super premium ice cream business first, and then there was Ben & Jerry's, the startup, the newcomer. And as soon as we went into, well, some of the larger markets for us, which was Boston and New York City, Haagen-Dazs was bought by Pillsbury. And Pillsbury went to all the major distributors in the country, who distributed about 20 different types of ice cream, and said to them, if you continue to sell Ben & Jerry's, we will not sell you Haagen-Dazs. And we talked to a lawyer, and they said it was a restraint of trade under federal antitrust law. And, you know, we didn't have the money to go up against Pillsbury, so we started the What's the Doughboy Afraid Of campaign, and flew banners over the major sports stadiums that said, what's the doughboy afraid of? Took out ads on the sides of buses that showed these two pudgy white hands trying to squeeze a pint of Ben & Jerry's, and eventually, through that grassroots guerrilla campaign, Pillsbury relented and allowed us to continue to distribute our ice cream, and the people were able to choose which product they wanted to buy. In conclusion, since the stop lady has given me the big stop sign, I want to tell you that when we all get Bernie Sanders elected and I become the Minister of Ice Cream, I promise a pint in every freezer, a sundae in every bowl.
Let's take him up on that. The new Minister of Ice Cream. This is a great occasion. We have another special guest, but Congressman McNerney, are you here, sir? I'm not going to make the same mistake I made previously with one of our great leaders in the federal government, because of the fact that antitrust legislation is a federal problem, even though I've spoken to some state officers who, in fact, I just mentioned it to Governor Gavin Newsom yesterday, and he is looking into it for the state, and I think that there are other people in our state government who will look into this issue to see how we can help protect small business owners. But what we really need to know is how we're going to start enforcing these the antitrust legislation with the big corporations that have been merging and taking over our lives and influencing politics in such a way that even owning media companies, newspapers in one company gives us a real danger in our democracy. And I'd like to now introduce Congressman Jerry McNerney.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity here. My name is Jerry McNerney. I'm a congressman from California's 9th District, which is east of here. That is Contra Costa and San Joaquin County. So the thing is, we're seeing an incredible concentration of market power right now, and that means several things, but I'll give you some examples that are pretty startling. Right now, there's a proposed merger between Sprint and T-Mobile. Now, Sprint and T-Mobile are the number 3 and 4 wireless providers. So right now, what that merger would mean, we'd go from 4 wireless providers in this country to 3 wireless providers in this country, which would, again, reduce choice. I'll give you another example. There's 4 airlines in this country that dominate 80% of airline commercial traffic. Healthcare, there's 2 healthcare providers that provide 70% of our nation's healthcare. 5 banks have 1/2 of our nation's assets, and even cat food, there's 2 companies that control the U.S. cat food market. So this is a problem that's continuing. Now, What does that mean? It means higher prices, it means worse choices, it means workers are going to be facing more difficult choices. So this is a very bad situation right now. The courts seem to be skeptical of enforcing antitrust laws right now. But fortunately, the Energy and Commerce Committee, the Consumer Protection Subcommittee that I'm a member of, we had an oversight hearing with the Federal Trade Commission, which has oversight over enforcing antitrust law. And what we're finding is that they do intend to do some work, but they're badly understaffed, they're badly resourced. They don't have enough technical people on board, for example, to understand what's going on at Google and Facebook. And so it's our duty and responsibility on oversight to make sure they have the resources they need to do the job in antitrust reinforcement. A couple of things coming up. The DOJ announced that they're going to be investigating Google. We want to make sure that that happens. We have a bill in Congress to limit Facebook. And one of the things about enforcing with these companies, with the edge providers, is that federal law, the Sherman antitrust law, requires that there be some measurable damage to consumers by the trust accumulation, by the concentration of businesses. And so right now we're going to have to learn, and with Facebook using data and Google using data, it's hard to quantify exactly what damage is being done to consumers. So we're going to have to move forward with some legislative understanding of how to quantify what's going on with data, because your data, as you know, is being used to commercialize, to make people at Facebook and Google and other edge providers a lot of money, and your privacy is going out the window. So we have a lot of work to do. We need to have more Democrats elected in Congress so we can move forward without the kind of impediments that the Republicans are putting in our way. So thank you for meeting, and thank you for having democratic ideals that we're trying to uphold throughout our country.
Congressman, do you have a minute to take a couple of questions?
Sure.
For one question, I'd like to ask the Congressman, what is stopping the Congress from enforcing these laws, and where do you see, and why do you think that they're not being enforced now, and what can we do to help support an effort to make some progress in that regard? And I'm going to ask the panelists also if you have questions for Congressman yourselves in your own experiences. So,
well, I mean, the problem is, as I mentioned, the Federal Trade Commission is the agency, the federal agency that has the responsibility to enforce antitrust law. And the Federal Trade Commission is understaffed. It's with a Republican president. It has a majority Republican members. So their focus is not so much on enforcing antitrust law. So I think that's the biggest problem. So what we need to do is have a Democratic president that'll make that Federal Trade Commission answer the people of this country, and right now we don't have that. So that's the answer to your question. Let's get more Democrats elected, and let's put that Republican so-and-so somewhere else.
as I said before, members of our panel, you would like to ask a question of the Congressman Weiss here. There's a microphone there for you. If you'd like to ask a question, please do.
Do you think it's a good idea to...
Yeah, please introduce yourself, because I haven't introduced you properly.
So I'm Garrett Schneider with the Writers Guild. So one of the questions we have is whether there needs to be some broader rewrite of antitrust laws, or whether it's just an issue of enforcement.
We're going to need a broader ride because, as I mentioned, with regard to edge providers and data, we don't have the right wording in our legislation, in our law. It's going to be, again, we also need to give the Federal Trade Commission the rulemaking authority so they can protect consumers and groups from being exploited by the conglomeration of business interests. So we need some legislation and we need some rulemaking. Yes?
What do you think about the fact that it seems, from my perspective, that a lot of times Republicans are trying to pretend, at least, that they are stronger on these issues, but they are, and because we've had several presidential, administrations where Democrats allowed for some consolidation, how do we combat that? I mean, obviously with new laws, but is there something that specifically we should be doing?
I think the thing is to get the message to the people that this concentration of market power is exacerbating the extreme distribution of wealth in this country. And I think that's the message we need to make, is that you're being affected. They say the unemployment is low, that's great, but what about the wages? Our wages are way below what they were in the 1970s, on an inflated basis. So we need to get that message out there to the American people that this concentration of market power and wealth at the top spectrum is hurting all Americans and it's hurting people across the entire world. So it's an important issue that we need to get the people behind it, and people need to understand how they're being hurt and what's going to take to change that.
So the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission have not been vigorous enough in policing mergers. And the question is whether any of the committees you're on are willing to hold any oversight hearings to examine the merger, the conduct, 5 years, 10 years later, and try to put some pressure on the federal enforcement agencies to see what happens decades or just a few years later as a result of, particularly where you have large firms merging in combining industries like AT&T and Time Warner, or CBS and Aetna.
Good question. Yes, we just had an oversight hearing with the Federal Trade Commission. Again, that commission is the one that has a responsibility for enforcing antitrust law, but they're badly understaffed, and we need to, they haven't shown us in the committee hearing that that's a focus of theirs. And so what we're going to have to do is have additional oversight hearing and make sure we keep those people aware that we're watching what they're doing and we expect them to perform for the American people, which I don't believe they're doing right now. Yeah. All right, thank you. I like more Democrats.
You heard the answer. So, as the Business and Professional Caucus, it's not just about what we do as small business owners, but what we do as Democrats to see that we elect the kind of people that will help solve the problems that great Democratic congressmen have, not only in Washington, but in our state. So to spread the word, let's build the strength of our caucus to be a stronger advocate for getting the laws passed that we need for small business. Now, having said that, we're going to move on with our panel, and thank you for helping us so much. And I want to introduce a person who was an inspiration for this panel. Back in December, I got a phone call, and the phone call was, as a Business and Professional Caucus, what do you think about the problems with, do I hear somebody? Oh, that's next door. What are we hearing? I mean, what's the Business and Professions Caucus doing about companies like Amazon? I said, that's an interesting question. What are we doing? And yes, and I had heard from a friend of mine how Amazon was driving him out of business because he referred customers, and then they were taking his customers. He was small business owners, but they were taking them. They were actually, they were supposed to just deliver for him and his customers, but they got their names and they started undercutting his prices, and they were driving him out of business. So anyway, now I was inspired by a person that talked to me about Amazon, and she's a criminal defense lawyer. She's an entrepreneur and founder of Find My Law Tutor, a member of the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, and she's a member of our caucus here. She's got a passion and creativity for intelligence, altruism, and coffee. Well, not coffee. An advocate and champion for the rising of tides and betterment of America through small business and wealth creation in middle-class America. Please put your hands together and let's welcome Sumita Dalal.
It's so great to see everyone here tonight. Ray and I were discussing this topic just in November, and we started this panel. Jennifer also was a catalyst, and Amy Klobuchar came to the panel tonight. So it just shows what activism can do, and don't think that the problem is too big. We have to combat it, and we have to do absolutely everything in our power to fight against the corporate coup d'etat that is taking over our economy and our jobs. So to start with that, I'm going to throw a lot of information. I know I have limited time, but I want you to leave this panel discussion with a base knowledge, and I want you to get angry, get passionate, and become activists, because we're going to need each and every single one of you in this fight. So, why is antitrust? Why are monopolies, to focus on them, important? Well, if we don't break up the monopolies that are taking over the jobs, we have greater income inequality. It's going to lead to the loss of our democracy, and it's going to lead us from being a first world power into a third world, because it's going to lead to the loss of jobs. And Chris Hedges talks a little bit about this in America the Farewell Tour, where he's talking more about the unemployment rate being approximately around 17%, not kind of more what the levels are. So I'm going to give kind of an overview, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Amazon. But I think kind of giving an overview of everything is going to provide you the context for why it's important that we fight against these corporations and against these monopolies in terms of a bigger and broader picture. Now, antitrust laws are supposed to regulate business, and it has supposed to have the intention to promote competition in business and level the playing field. So the founders of our country believed in the American dream, and it believed that government should level the playing field so that we each have an opportunity to have wealth and prosperity and happiness. And the government is supposed to do that for each and every one of us. Now, antitrust laws are supposed to promote that competition. However, what's going on right now is income inequality. And in President Obama's State of the Union address in 2014, he said that 40% of the nation's wealth was owned by the top 1%. Fast forward that 5 years, it is now 90% of the nation's wealth are owned by the top 1%. It sounds like a crazy statistic. I barely believe it myself. Ray Dalio, who owns Bridgewater Associates, said that we are in a national emergency based on income inequality, and asked for the reformation of capitalism based on that, and called for the next president to declare it a national emergency and focus on it. So it is extremely important, and I believe that it's on par with climate change, and it needs to be addressed. But it's a complicated issue. So I think that a lot of people just aren't aware of the problem that we're occurring and having. Now, the middle class is important because it drives the backbone of our democracy and in terms of our economy. The middle class needs to have enough consumer spending and disposable income in order to purchase. The top 1% don't drive the economy because they don't consume enough to drive a healthy economy. So the economy is very important. The middle class are important because we hold government accountable. Without us holding government accountable, without a strong middle class, you have fascism, which is a result of an economic inequality, which is what we're seeing now. So this is part of an issue that needs to be addressed. It's not only Trump, it is the income inequality and shoring up businesses, providing jobs, and having a strong middle class. Where we are failing, China is taking up, and they've taken our playbook. By 2022, 76% of China will be considered in the middle class, whereas in the United States, it's at a 52% in 2016. And it's approximately $78,000 in the middle class. Now, it's 30% more expensive to live in the middle class than it was 20 years ago, and entrepreneurship is down. We're looking at 44% of businesses that are down in the last couple decades. I saw one figure by MSNBC, and I didn't get a chance to write it down fast enough, but it's something like there's a 300% decline or something absolutely astronomical. But we have to remember that small business drives wealth, it drives profit, it drives the middle class, and it's not being talked about. There's a vacuum in terms of information and knowledge regarding the small business and the middle class. So that brings me to Amazon. First off, I'd like you to raise your hand if you have bought from Amazon the past month. Be honest. I'd like you to raise your hands if you're a Prime member. Yes, I see you. I see you. So that's about 50% for each or more. To give you some staggering figures on Amazon, 43% of online sales in 2016 were done on Amazon. 51% of Americans will be Prime members. I think they already are Prime members, actually. And Jeff Bezos, when I talk about Amazon, I'm also talking about Jeff Bezos because we can't forget him and his power over all of us. He owns $130 billion pre-divorce. And he's upped his lobbying efforts from $4.7 million in 2014 to $12 million in 2017, as if his greed and as if the money that he is making, he will just pass more and more laws in order to put more and more people out of work in the United States. Amazon made a profit of $92 million, which is nothing compared to Google is at $3.9 billion. Amazon's whole goal was to not profit for 21 years. It was to be a monopoly, which is directly in contradiction to what our antitrust laws are in this country. But as we've all said, these antitrust laws are not being enforced, and Amazon is taking a bulldozer. 10% of the economy is in retail. However, America's stores are closing at an alarming rate, and no one is discussing this. We are having a retail apocalypse. Arden B, 54 stores. Loman's, 39 stores. Bebe, 180 stores. Toys R Us, 182 stores. Macy's, 68 stores. The list goes on and on and on. And what we see is empty storefronts and people who are losing their jobs, their way of life, and their living. They don't know where they're going to get their next paycheck from. And for instance, just before I came here, there was Cobblestone Cottage in Santa Clarita, 32 years in business, 14 employees, went in, said, hey, how are you guys doing? They're saying, we're closing, we can't compete with online. We're all losing our jobs. I've worked here for 15 years, or 20. A lot of people have worked for all those years losing their jobs. So this is real people losing their jobs, losing their income. And the secondary effects to our economy are people losing those $30,000 to $100,000 jobs, not going to the restaurants they used to frequent, not paying for the real estate. So we have a lot of effects that is happening based on that. I just want to say that the Federal Trade Commission is supposed to be policing these monopolies, and they're not. Amazon is clearly a monopoly. No one can compete with them. And the 52% of people that give that information to Amazon knows about you. They know you're a size 2. They know you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They know you have a pet. And that is information that no other small business can compete with. So I just like to say, I was talking to someone yesterday, and it was a very smart, bright girl from Berkeley, and I was talking to her, and she said, and I said, well, people just don't seem to care. I said, people just don't seem to care, and she said, well, I guess they just have to question, what's the price of my freedom? And so that's the question I'm going to leave to you, is what is the price of your freedom? I truly believe that fighting corporations and fighting corporate monopolies are what is the most important battles in our country to restore democracy and to begin the resurrection of the American dream. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. And I really do appreciate it. And we all experience Amazon. And, when you consider how big they are, they're going into space, they're going into motion pictures, they're going into streaming, they're going into internet, they bought the Washington Post. What else do they need? I mean, they're so huge that we're at risk if you think about it. They're not going to need to make political contributions to get what they want. They can just put out fake news if they chose to and advertise in any means that they would like to. So, be concerned about that. And thank you again for bringing that to our attention. And thank you for introducing this panel to our membership. And now we're moving along. I want to ask, is Assemblymember Reyes here, please? Assemblymember Reyes, okay. Then we're going to move on, and I want to introduce another one of our panelists. You've heard a little bit that he's been with the Writers Guild, but I just want to say that Andrew Schneider, Dr. Andrew Schneider, he's got his PhD in sociology, his dissertation college on the emergence of financial conglomerates over the 20th century. He's the field director. He's been the field director for Adam Schiff and assistant policy director on Bobby Shriver's campaign for LA County Supervisor. He currently serves as a senior research and policy analyst at the Writers Guild of America West, the Union of Hollywood and Film Film Writers. His policy portfolio includes antitrust policy, pension policy, and broadcasters regulations. And before I bring him up, I want to make one comment. Rusty's got 1426 votes, and Kimberly has 824. So that's 60%. Rusty's in the lead for our next CDP chair. And so with that, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Schneider, who's leading the fight to protect the Writers Guild and the creative people that share profession with many of our members here who like to write a lot, and it's so important to write good stuff and free.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay. Before I get started, have you heard the terms horizontal integration and vertical integration? Is that familiar? So I'll be using them in my talk here. So horizontal integration is when a company buys its direct competitor. Vertical integration is when they buy a supplier. So if a computer manufacturer bought a chip maker, that's a vertical integration. So I'd like to thank the Caucus for inviting the Writers Guild to discuss the harms resulting from the government's failure to enforce antitrust law. A generation of antitrust under-enforcement has resulted in oligopolies controlling industry after industry, including media and telecommunications, where the 15,000 members of the Writers Guild of America West and its affiliate, the Writers Guild of America East, create nearly all of the scripted series and movies seen on television and shown in theaters. Consolidation and vertical integration among film and TV studios, television networks, cable companies, and internet providers has left content and distribution markets dominated by a handful of huge conglomerates with control over what consumers watch and how they watch it. Online video introduced new competition for content and viewers, but prompted even more aggressive consolidation from the traditional programmers and the distributors who viewed it as a threat. In the last decade alone, over $379 billion in large mergers. I'm only talking about mergers that are larger than $1 billion. There's been $379 billion worth of large mergers have occurred along the audiovisual value chain, including 3 of the largest mergers in the history of media and telecommunications. And some of these are the largest mergers are on the list of largest mergers in the history of US capitalism. And these are Charter Time Warner Cable at $67.1 billion in 2016, AT&T Time Warner at $85 billion in 2018, and Disney Fox at $71.3 billion in 2019. The bigger is better bias in antitrust enforcement and merger review has allowed all of these combinations, despite the evidence that they would hurt competition and reduce variety and choice for content. Disney Fox, for example, will control as much as 40% of the theatrical box office, so I hope you like superhero movies, and has already announced plans to significantly cut its film output. For writers, the historical consolidation among their employers has threatened creativity and caused stagnating wages and deteriorating working conditions despite a new golden age of television and record corporate profitability. Along with consolidation among employers, writers have also experienced a negative impact of concentration among their representatives, which has contributed to the current conflict between Hollywood writers and the talent agencies, which some of you may have heard about in the press recently. So let me give you some context on this conflict. Hollywood is a freelance business, and the Guild's traditional role was to set minimum compensation and take care of residual payments and health and pension benefits for its members, while talent agents, their role was to find work for writers and negotiate individual deals above the minimum set by the Guild. We call that overscale. Like the rest of the media and telecommunications sector, however, the large talent agencies have been gobbling up smaller talent agencies and diversifying into activities beyond talent representation. The 4 largest talent agencies now represent 75% of writer earnings, and they have abused their market power, abandoning their fiduciary duties to their clients and adopting business practices that put their own interests ahead of their clients. Instead of making money when their clients make money, talent agencies now leverage their market power, that is their control over talent, to cut lucrative side deals with studios and demand a share of show profits to the detriment of the writers who created the show and who put in the long, grueling days bringing them to life. What it's like to work in television, it's a brutal industry with like 15-hour days, just incredibly high pressure deadlines. It's a very hard thing to do. And we're talking about a situation in which people's talent agents are making more money than the people who actually create the shows. So in addition, the large talent agencies have set up their own studios, which means they become the employers of their own clients and can use vertical integration to discriminate against rival agencies and rival studios. These are serious and harmful conflicts of interest that the Writers Guild seeks to address. And as a result of the talent agency's unwillingness to stop these practices, thousands of writers have chosen to walk away from their agencies. So over 7,000 writers have terminated representation with the major Hollywood talent agencies. And we're talking about some of the most powerful writers in Hollywood who have chosen to terminate representation over these conflicts of interest. There was a time in which US antitrust enforcers would have taken action against the anti-competitive behavior of companies like the large talent agencies. In fact, they did. Back in 1962, the Department of Justice under Robert Kennedy intervened when MCA, the most powerful talent agency at the time, moved into movie production. The DOJ forced MCA to choose between representing talent and making movies, and MCA chose making movies and ultimately went on to become Universal Studios. Today, however, the bigger is better bias in antitrust practice means that US antitrust enforcers often turn a blind eye as large companies consolidate markets and abuse their market power to the detriment of consumers, working professionals, and small and mid-sized businesses alike. Reinvigorated antitrust enforcement is needed to restore fair competition, not just in the media and telecommunications sector, but across the economy. Thank you. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Garrett. And we do need to protect the creative people. Many of you are creative. I'm a member of the Producers Guild for some 40 years, and I know that in our business, without the talent of writers, we're in deep trouble for quality entertainment. And keep in mind that when we have writers who help us with our progressive messages, this is very important. We can make a big difference in the world when we have talent that stands out for our issues that are issues that pertain to developing a better world. So we need to stand with the Writers Guild and stand together to help them. And Garrett, thank you for your work with the Writers Guild. We, as a caucus, really appreciate what you're doing. I know that we have some more things to get through, and we have some guests here, but we've been told that the room is scheduled for some hospitality thing after us, and they want us to try to finish on time, which would be 9:15. So, but without further ado, we're moving on our final panelists. And let me just remind you, we're going to make time so that you as audience members will have an opportunity to have some questions for members of our panel. So if you have something that you would like to ask, have it in mind, because we want to have a line here, and we're going to invite you to participate. That's been our intention, and we hope that we had so many extra guests that dropped by, and we had some pressures from the beginning, to get things set up right. But sometimes we just don't get our room set up right, and we had to go through some difficulties. But this next person that I want to introduce, she is a very special person who's been involved in political and public relations consulting in her company, J.L. Rindahl Consulting. Jennifer has been working combating monopolies for her life. She's been the campaign manager for Eleni Kolanaki, and she's Eleni Easton. Delaney Easton. Delaney. I asked somebody, how do you spell Delaney's last name? Okay, so I'm sorry for that.
Okay, I just want to make sure that
but anyway, Delaney's a great person too, and Jennifer, you are too, and we're glad to have you on the panel, and give a welcome round of applause for Jennifer.
Thank you, everyone, so much for being here and being interested in being Democrats and being active small business owners and professionals who are really interested. A little louder? Okay. Yeah. One of the things I think about when we think about being activists in the Democratic Party, when we hear some of these things and we get a little frustrated at what's happened over the last 20 years as we see things that our party has kind of allowed to happen and really hurt the middle class, hurt people like yourselves in this room who are really trying to be small. You're not trying to be the big, huge billionaire over there, but you're trying to, have a nice business, feed your family, maybe take care of a few employees, provide them with solid wages and benefits. And so I think one of the things that I think is important to us is to recognize that the issues that have been discussed today are not issues that are unpopular in terms of fixing. So one of the things, there was a recent survey and it said 76% of the country are either very or somewhat concerned that big corporations have too much power over their families and communities. 88% of people believe that big corporations have too much power over people, and 65% believe that the government should do more to break up corporate monopolies. So antitrust enforcement is a winning issue. It's a winning issue for Democrats. It's a winning issue in some of the areas that we unfortunately lost in the 2016 election. So one of the things, unfortunately, that happened is that as Democrats, in some ways, we do bear responsibility for allowing our antitrust enforcement to ossify. Under both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, large corporations were allowed to grow larger, as we've just heard, right? And for a long time, we have clung to a notion that if costs could go down for consumers, that there are no problems. And as we can see, and we've heard quite clearly from all of our panelists, there's a lot of problems as a result. And that those problems have exponentially affected and impacted the people in this very room. And as Democrats, I think, and Democrats in California in particular, we have an opportunity really to change that. We're seeing already, even since 2016, since that election, when we have senators like Amy Klobuchar, who is not, a raging liberal necessarily, but really tackling this issue of antitrust, really trying to go to the mat for it. Then we of course see the senators like, you know, Elizabeth Warren, who's developed a plan to break up the big tech industry and to talk about these antitrust issues and make it one of the key components of her platform as she runs for president. So on the federal level, we're seeing some movement for the first time really in several decades. This has been a very, very long time for us. So on that level, but unfortunately we have the realities of several things that are going to take a long time. We have a couple more years before we have the opportunity to get a Democratic president elected. Then we'll have to take some time to get new commissioners for the Federal Trade Commission and the FCC. And those commissioners, we have to make sure that we're lobbying, depending on who we elect as president, to make sure that they actually appoint strong antitrust enforcement agents of change, you know, to these agencies, and they don't go and end up appointing folks that are going to just go along to get along, or, you know, there's this rumor that there's going to be a lawsuit that's going to be settled against Facebook, and it's going to be basically the cost of one day's business. So we have to make sure that the enforcement fits the crime. And yes, Facebook is a large business and they have a lot of profit, so $5 billion sounds like a lot of money. That's the rumor, that's what the enforcement amount is going to be, but $5 billion for Facebook is one day's, basically, you know, give or take, one day's business. So we have to just make sure that we are electing and electing Democrats at the federal level, but also at the state level. So the one thing that I like to think about, we always, in Californians, we rely on ourselves as we are the resistance. You know, as soon as Trump was elected, we really rallied around ourselves. And then we saw this 2018 election where we elected even more Democrats to go to Congress in our state. We really are one of the biggest Democratic strongholds in the country. And the one nice thing is that we actually have one of the best antitrust state laws in the country. So good news for us is that we do have one of the strongest antitrust laws that was passed a number of decades ago now, but in California we have this opportunity. What we need to do is we need to encourage our Attorney General to bring more lawsuits. So to do more enforcement, to do more activities so that he's actually going after companies in California. And what we'll be able to determine is once we start trying to enforce our antitrust laws more rigorously, we'll see if we need to change laws because we'll see how the judges respond to this enforcement. And then the other thing about that issue is that the one thing that we could do to strengthen our antitrust laws in California specifically is that we could go into there is the way that the European standards that they have is they have something called an abusive dominance and discrimination standard, which is, as you were hearing earlier with us, is that we have a standard in where it's about the consumerism, and so it's about like if the prices are not, if it's good for the consumer, it's good for everybody. And so we could slightly increase our standards in California specifically. So we have Democrats in the Assembly, we have Democrats in the Senate, you know, we have a Democratic governor, so we have the opportunity to even make our antitrust laws in California even stronger. And then the other thing we also have here that we could utilize is we have one of the best privacy protection laws in California, again, in the entire country. And so in fact, what we have to be sure that we're protecting at the federal level, there have been some opportunities where the federal government is looking to pass a privacy law, and the results of that would actually end up weakening our privacy laws because what they're looking at is not as strong as California, and one of the reasons that they're getting some bipartisan support for this is so that they can combat California's very strong privacy laws. So these are things that, but in California, so we have to make sure that we protect and defend our privacy law, we don't let it get weakened at the federal level, which would then trickle down to us. And then number two though, make sure that we're encouraging our Attorney General, encouraging the governor to vigorously enforce antitrust and to take the full strength of the California state government, of our democratic state, to tackle some of the issues that are being brought up at the federal level, but that we know are not really able to happen right now, that they're not going to be done under a Trump presidency. They're not going to be done in the next 2 to 4 years as things get geared up. So things that we could do here could start getting that ball rolling faster. So those are things that I encourage us as Democrats. I'm a member of the CDD as well. I'm on the executive board. I really like us to start really ramping up the push at to our executives to showcase that we think that this is really important for our state, for our small businesses, for our professionals, and that if we go and we start making those calls, I really think we can make a difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. You know, her approach and her perspective, you know, from a political viewpoint is so important to the solution for this problem. And, you know, as members of our caucus, if you think about a resolution that would help you in some respect with your business, please allow us to work with you to sponsor your resolution or any platform changes that define a small business. There's a lot of things that we can do. Now, pardon?
Quick aside.
You have to use your microphone.
Oh, sorry. My projection voice here. I sit on the CDP Resolutions Committee, so if anyone does want to submit a resolution, I'm happy to work with you on language. Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate that, Brigette. Thank you very much. And now we're going to be opening this up for our panelists, and Eric, I'm going to ask you to do a summary of what you think of the panel in a minute. We have 15 minutes, and in regard to the impact of money on our electoral systems, and this is the most important thing. It's the root of all evil as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, it's really what is hurting us all. If you look at any issue, the core problem is in our elected leaders who are beholden to money, especially Republicans who use that money to actually get into office and remain in office, but it comes from those big corporate donors, and we've got to do something about it. And I'll tell you, there's a person that's done a lot about it in the state of California. You all know about the Clean Money campaign. Our good friend Trent Lang is here, and he's going to give us some updates on what is happening with the money in politics and what we together might be able to help his efforts and all the hard work he does to make sure that we have clean money in politics. Trent. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. The Business and Professional Caucus has been a true friend in the fight against money in politics. We've been working for a long time here in California. Many of you know that we were working to try to get secret money out of political ads for a very long time, trying to pass the California Disclose Act. Very, very difficult when you have powerful interests that want to keep buying elections. They literally spend billions of dollars on ballot measures, on attacks for and against candidates that affect everything in our political system. We were able to, with the help of a lot of Democratic Party activists, a couple of years ago, finally pass the California Disclose Act to make every ballot measure ad and independent expenditure ad here in California have to clearly and prominently show their top 3 funders. That was a huge, huge start. But we can't stop there. So this year we are working on a couple of different extensions to the Disclose Act. Last year we passed the Social Media Disclose Act to make ads on Facebook and Twitter and other social media have to disclose their top 3 funders. This year we've got 3 different Disclose Act bills that each pass through their, through the first house of the legislature. They need help. We passed we're working on SB 47, the Petition Disclose Act, to make initiative signature gatherers have to clearly show their top 3 funders, because special interests buy their way onto the ballot. That's the initiative process was meant to be as a way around the special interests. And now it's not. A companion bill that we have right now, and we have petitions from our friend right there, she's circulating, SB 636, the Ballot Disclose Act, to put on the ballot who opposes and who supports each state ballot measure. 15 words, because that's what some people really want to know. You can help us pass that by signing the petitions that she'll click. I think she's done it mostly on this side, but she'll get it to that side of the thing. Talk with me about how you can do this. All this pays into the power of corporations that are dominating our society, as we've seen with these antitrust issues. We're making progress, but California must continue to lead. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, before we go on, because we're under a time restraint, I want to take care of some of our caucus business. As you know, this is an election term, and our former chair, prior to me, some 10 years ago, and an attorney has been our parliamentarian, and I'm introducing Andrew Lockman, who's going to take care of some caucus business.
So we're going to be using the Donald Trump rules. I want to thank you for making me your chair. You can all go home. I'm sure you've been following the results on the web with the elections, so it looks like we're probably not going to be having a run-on tomorrow. But hopefully, with this election here, we won't need one either. So as the rules go, there is you're required to 30 days notice. And since no additional candidates gave notice, I will at this point accept, I'm sorry, let me just make one other quick statement. There is, the position of secretary is open. So after our vote by acclamation, we can take nominations from the floor and for anybody who wants to be secretary. And so please let me know, as the former secretary of the Democratic Party of San Fernando Valley, it's not a lot of work and Ray's great to work with.
Thank you.
I'll take my check from you later on.
Okay.
All right. So I will at this point accept a motion to accept by acclamation the nominees for all the other offices except for secretary.
So moved.
So what was that?
So moved.
Is there a second? Hearing any objections? Hearing none? So done. Yes.
Do we have to show cards for members? How many?
I mean, if there's no objection.
There's no objection.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
As I'll tell you, the last time I ran the election, we ended up having to do it only 2 or 3 times.
Well, you're an expert by now, so I trust you.
I went to law school because there was no math. Anyway, so now we at this point will take any nominations to the floor for anyone who would like to be secretary.
Todd?
Going on.
Did you want to nominate somebody, Todd, for secretary?
No, I didn't.
I thought you wanted to nominate your friend Minerva.
Oh, if she wants to, okay, I'll nominate Minerva.
What's your full name?
Minerva Williams. I nominate Minerva Williams.
Okay, you're nominating Minerva. You got it.
I got that. Does she accept?
She'll accept.
Okay, she's outside.
Are there any? Okay, sure. Are there any other nominations? If anyone could just confirm the acceptance out there, that would be great, just so we can get everything moving. Is there anyone else who wishes to be nominated from the floor? Going once, going twice. Yes.
Can you nominate yourself?
Sure.
I've been Mateo Maldonado.
Thank you. All right, we have 2. Mateo Maldonado. Okay. With that in mind, let me try it one more time. Going once, going twice. She accepts? Okay. You warned her? No, I'm just kidding.
She's running. She wants it.
All right. All right. So those are the 2 positions.
There was somebody else who stood up.
Did someone else wish to nominate? I'm sorry. Please identify yourself.
My name is Eddie.
Okay. Thank you. So we have 3. I believe our bylaws require that there has to be a majority, so we may have a runoff on that.
Should we ask the tradition?
If it's okay, would it be acceptable for everyone to have 30 seconds of comment from each of the candidates? Okay. Does that work for everybody as a rule? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I love democracy. Okay. All right, we will now open up for commentary, and while we're getting the first candidate out here, I'm going to just do a very quick update that on the national level, I'm the chair of the National Small Business Owners Council. We are in the process of planning a national small business forum with the DNC. We're trying to do that maybe in early fall and have leaders from all across the country. Now that we have the House, we're going to try to get some of the leadership to talk about what the small business vision is and how much this administration has hurt small businesses, especially those of you with this so-called tax reform plan, which unless you own a corporation, and most small businesses don't, you ended up paying a heck of a lot. So, how are we doing? Okay, while we're waiting for Minerva, Sir, I'll let you go first. Right.
There's the mic right there.
Hi. Is it on? I think it's on. My name is Matteo Maldonado. I'm from this. Is it working? No. My name is Matteo Maldonado. My background is from campaigning and accounting. I work for Luke Nozick, a company named Numinous. We work with small companies focusing on AI, particularly startups. One of the largest investments is in SpaceX and diversifying the new stem cell research and other healthcare research that can help prevent new diseases that are coming out and diseases that have not been solved yet and that people are still dying from, not only in America, but across the world. For campaigning, I've worked for Josh Harder, and we were the most successful campaign. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, that's the timer I use for my daughter as well. All right, so go ahead, you're up next. I'll set the timer again. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Minerva. This mic is not working.
No.
My name is Minerva Williams. I have been working behind the scenes on the front desk, and prior to that I was working with the Afro-American Caucus for about 10 years. Before that, I have been working with Mark Pash, whose book is on the table, and we have been pressing the need for financial literacy. And we figured that if a lot more individuals starting as high as junior high school understand money better, we feel that it'll give them an opportunity. Is my 2 minutes are up already?
No, it's 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Vote for Minerva.
Anyway, vote for Minerva. And I can tell you, as far as secretarial work goes, I go back to 25 years at the LA Times when I was a senior lifestyle coordinator and pushing for senior markets.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we have our last candidate. Sir? Could be worse, they all had some of their candidacy in one verb. All right, good. Yeah.
Hello?
Is it on?
Is it on now? Yeah, I got to have a switch.
You can, is it okay to project or do you need?
Yeah. Time's up.
Time's up.
Hi, my name is Eddie Arias. I am a former small business specialist. I was a small business specialist for the past 2 years. Currently, because of the people that I've been able to meet and know their backgrounds, I've been getting into politics and I'm currently interning for a congressman. And that's a little bit about my background right now. So let's go ahead and talk about other issues rather than just my background. Okay.
Thank you. Good. You have 10 seconds left. I'm impressed.
Give a little bit of background here.
So we have to. So we're going to do the vote now. So this is how it's going to work. So we're going to have. If you have a card, they're going to get a ballot.
Members have cards here, I believe, that are.
Right.
If you're members of the caucus and you have a card, then you're a voting member.
Right. So if you will please raise your card, they will give you a ballot. Is that
no,
correct?
they have ballots.
Oh, okay. You have a ballot.
Is the card?
Is the card?
Yeah, the card is a ballot.
The card. So we may have to do a second round.
How about, I move that we raise our cards instead of turning them in, so we can just count them?
Yeah, you don't have to turn them in.
If
Just raise your cards to vote.
If there's no objection to doing an open ballot, we'll just go in the order of nomination. Do we have someone who wrote down, the secretary, perhaps write down the names? We don't have the secretary, do we? Okay. So let's start with those who wish to vote for Minerva Williams. Please raise their cards. 2. Okay, 3. 1, 2, 3. Are members as well? 4, 5. Okay.
And count Ray.
And 6. Okay. Say your name again one more time.
Mateo.
Mateo. All who wish to vote for Mateo, raise your cards. 1.
Thank you.
What? I assume you're voting for yourself?
Yeah, I don't have a card.
Okay.
You gotta go for the SpaceX guy.
Thank you. 3. Okay, and then that leaves one more time. Your name again, sir? Eddie Arias. Eddie. Of those voting for Eddie Arias, please raise your cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, oh, there's 2 hands. Do that again. One. You have to have a card. Is your card up? Sorry. One.
I have a card.
If you're a member, you should have a card. One. Is that it? What? Oh, two. Okay, three. So we had 5 on the first one, right? 6. So 6, 3, 1. That means that Minerva has a majority. So let's welcome our new secretary. And I just want to say I hate you guys for making me do math. But I appreciate it. Okay, congratulations.
I know they're outside ready to push us out, but is Nelson Serrano here? Sarah Davis? Enid Swergan? Vern Kennedy? Nisa Serrano? Mark Molliff? Okay. I want to thank all of the panelists, and if you have any, is there anyone that would like to ask a quick question? They're going to throw us out at 9:15 a minute ago. But and I want to thank all of you for supporting the Business and Professions Caucus. If you're not a member, please go online at www.cadem caucuses and join. That's how we survive. And is there anyone that has a question? If you'd like to come up and ask a quick question, but it has to be a question because they're going to kick us out. So we respect you. Go to the spectrum.
Well, this is so everyone can hear me. This is a question, and so they can hear me too.
Oh, sure.
This is a question, probably for the attorney, maybe for anyone else who. But the question, or the thing that Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream said that he didn't have the money to hire an attorney. I was wondering if there's an attorney's fees provision in the law, or do attorneys typically take it on contingency? And for everyone, is there a way? Do you have any? I know there's a huge problem with enforcement, but is there a way to make the laws more robust, either in an antitrust context or another context? For example, some countries in Europe, like I know in Germany, Walmart tried to go in to a specific area. I don't know what it is, what type of law prevented them from doing it, but they said, no, we're not going to have Walmart coming in here, and they protect small businesses and protect their culture in that way.
So the antitrust laws, the victim who's suing wins, they're entitled to attorney's fees, and there is a strong antitrust plaintiffs bar, which I'm a member of, across the country, and we take cases on a contingency, yes. Yes.
Wow.
And you can also file complaints with the FTC for anti-competitive behavior. Just go to their website, that's another way to do it.
Nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you.